All right, let's break down one of the biggest career opportunities for experienced bankers out there, the State Bank of India's circle-based officer recruitment for 2026. So, the State Bank of India is on the hunt for what they call circle-based officers, or CBOs. Now, this isn't some entry-level gig. No, this is a pretty significant role that's really designed for pros who've already got some solid experience in the banking world. And that's the big question, right? Could this be you? Well, stick around for the next few minutes because we're going to walk through absolutely everything you need to know, from who can apply to how you get selected, so you can answer that question for yourself. We've laid out this whole guide to pretty much follow the exact journey you take as an applicant. We'll start with what the job is all about and take it all the way to the finish line. Okay, let's get into it. What exactly is this role? What does being a circle-based officer at a powerhouse like SBI really mean? First off, and this is a big one, you'd be joining an institution that's consistently ranked as one of the best in the world. The CBO role itself is what you call a generalist officer position, so you'll be handling all sorts of banking operations. But here's the key. You're posted in a specific geographical area, what SBI calls a circle. So think of it as a huge administrative zone, which lets you become a real expert in that local region. All right, before you get your hopes up and start polishing that resume, let's hit pause and go through the most important part, the absolute must-have requirements. So these three things are your first big hurdles. You need a degree, and hey, any discipline works. Your age has to be between 21 and 30 as of the end of 2025. But that last one, the experience requirement, that's the real game changer here. And let's be super clear about this, that 2-year experience is completely non-negotiable. It has to be after you got your degree, and it has to be in an officer role at another major commercial bank or a regional rural bank. It's also super important to know who can't apply. If you're already working for SBI in a clerical or supervisory role, this isn't for you. Same goes if you used to be an officer at SBI and resigned. This opportunity is for external candidates. So if you've managed to tick all those eligibility boxes, that's awesome. Now let's look at the 4-step process you've got to clear to land this job. Think of it like a gauntlet, but a very well-structured one. And here it is, the entire journey from start to finish. It all kicks off with a pretty tough online test. Then they do a screening to make sure all your experience checks out. After that comes the interview, and the final step is a language test to make sure you can actually communicate in the region you're applying for. So that online test is the first big gate you've got to pass through. It's a 2.5-hour marathon. The first 2 hours are all multiple choice questions on things like English, banking knowledge, and so on. And then right after, you've got a 30-minute descriptive test. But here's a little bit of good news. There's no negative marking on the objective part, so you can and should answer every single question. Now, how do they actually decide who gets the job? It all comes down to a final merit list. And get this, your online test score makes up a whopping 75% of your final score. The interview is the other 25%. So yeah, doing well on that written test is absolutely critical. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about the landscape. Where are these jobs? And more importantly, let's dig into a critical rule about the local language that you just cannot afford to ignore. So all in all, there are over 2,000 regular jobs available. That sounds like a lot, right? But remember, these are spread out all across the country in different circles. This here gives you a little snapshot of the hotspots, the places with the most openings. You've got circles like Bangalore, Kolkata, and Lucknow, each with 200 spots. But look closely at that last column, the local languages. That is probably the most important part of this whole slide. All right, you need to listen up because these rules are deal breakers. First, you can only apply to one circle. One. No hedging your bets. Second, you have to be proficient in the local language of that circle, reading, writing, the whole 9 yards. Now, if you studied that language in school, you might get to skip the language test. And last, be ready to settle in, because you can't ask for a transfer to another circle for a long, long time. And now, it's time for a quick reality check. It's no secret that banking exams in India are ridiculously competitive, but let's try to put a number on that. I mean, we all know it, right? Everyone's got a story about how tough these exams can be. But what does the data really tell us about just how fierce the competition is? So just how tough are we talking about? While we don't have the exact cutoff scores for this specific CBO exam, we can look at another big banking exam to get a sense of things. It's not a perfect one-to-one comparison, but it definitely paints a picture of how high the bar is set. Just take a look at these scores from the IBPS clerk exam. To even qualify for the next round in places like Chandigarh or Uttarakhand, you needed to score over an 85 out of 100. Again, this is a different exam, but it gives you a very real sense of the kind of performance you need to bring to the table. So let's say you do it. You navigate the whole process, you beat the intense competition, and you make it. What's the prize at the end? And what should you be doing right now? Well, the reward is pretty sweet. You start with a basic pay of over 48,000 rupees a month, and that's before all the allowances and benefits are added on. Once you're in, there's a 6-month probation period to help you get up to speed with how SBI does things. And finally, the dates you need to know. Circle these on your calendar. The application window is really short. It opens on January 29th and shuts on February 18th. The test is likely going to happen in March, so you really don't have a lot of time to prepare. So there you have it, the complete breakdown, from who's eligible to what the competition looks like. You've got all the key info now to decide if this is the right move for you. The only question left is, are you ready to take that first step?